It's time to go to war.
This is a Go to War podcast, which is a mindset.
It's time to go to war.
You're the fucking problem. Get your mind right and get ready to go to war.
It's time to go to war.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Go to War podcast. This is your host, John Paramore. Almost forgot my name there for a second. I didn't actually, but maybe a moment of Alzheimer's or something setting in. But hey, thanks for hanging out today. There is a growing issue, or maybe not issue. Maybe it's something that a lot of you guys are not aware of. And we literally talk to people every single day about this same thing. And I'm going to go over this with you today. And we're going to cover something that I would label as like not everybody's favorite topic, but probably the most important thing. I went back through and looked at the archives of the podcast that we were done, and I was shocked that I haven't talked about this on a podcast, because it's probably the number one thing that we speak about when we take on new clients. When I'm out in public speaking in general, this is one of the things that we speak about and talk about a whole lot. And I was completely shocked and beside myself that we haven't talked about this yet. So what I'm going to go through with you guys today is what I would label as authentic leadership. Okay. And let me do the homework real quick. Okay. Number one, I don't get paid to do this podcast. By the way, I love you guys. You guys are sharing the crap out of this podcast. And because of that, we were waiting for the audience to grow to a certain size before we started bringing guests on to the podcast. We're there. So I'm going to start lining up some pretty powerful guests. Like I'm not going to bring on people onto this podcast that I don't feel like could deliver high amounts of volume where I announce who they are and you guys are like, damn, I can't believe this guy got this guy on this podcast. So some of my good friends, mentors, personal coaches have agreed to do the podcast. I told them that I wanted a couple things in tow. Number one, I wanted to have our new studio complete, which we're almost there. And number two, I wanted to be over a certain level of people, downloads, whatever, that listen to the podcast, and we are also there. So we don't get paid to do this podcast. I do this because I'm taking my 20 plus years of business experience, entrepreneurship. I'm sharing it with you. So in hopes that you listen to this podcast, you do something with the information. And when you hear something that you would deem as like a nugget or something that's helping you in your life or in your business, I just ask that you share this podcast forward. Because if it helps you, it can help someone else. It's a free podcast, so don't hoard the information as though, oh, John gave me something, I'm going to use this, but then you're not putting it out for other people. So I just ask, the payment is I need you to share this, I need you to like it, I need you to comment. Simple as that. Now, that being said, some of you guys are going to listen to this podcast for the first time today. During this podcast, I'm likely to challenge you or trigger you, and I'm also likely to drop some language on this podcast that you might not be used to. If that's going to bother you at all, and that preface, you heard anything you think is going to bother you, I just ask you not to listen to this podcast, because what I don't need is a negative review. I don't need some negative comment by somebody who got all butthurt over something we said, and then they leave this comment and I got to deal with that. Okay. So I'm giving you an out right now. If there's something in this podcast that you think that regarding language or something that I might say that might trigger you, just get off the podcast and go do something else. Go troll one of my other posts or something on Facebook. So, all right. So authentic leadership. Let's talk about that for a minute. Okay. So every single business that I go into that's not that authentic leadership doesn't exist in, what they have is a culture problem. They have a breakdown where there's a leader asking people to do things or telling people to do things that he or her themselves does not do. Okay. And so I'll give you an example. We went into an organization a few years back, and one of the main people in the organization was I would not say overweight or out. I would say out of shape. Out of shape is a fair assessment. They were out of shape. They were asking people inside their organization to get into like physical fitness challenges or be parts of certain routines or whatever the case. And the problem was they would initiate the behavior, but then like midway through, they would kind of tap out or just not finish the work. Or they would be the same person that initiated the behavior, but then somewhere down the road, they decide that they don't want to do it anymore, so they stop doing it, but yet they're putting a requirement on the team that they need to continue to do the work. And so the difference between, I was actually yesterday, I was talking to one of my mentors and coaches and friends about the same thing. And one of the things that he said was, he said, when it comes to authentic leadership, and I've said this before to some of our clients, but he put it in a different way that I thought made a lot of sense. If we hold ourselves to a higher level, then we ask people to perform. That's what authentic leadership looks like. And both of us right now are in the midst of going through 75 Hard. If you guys don't know what that program is, that's a different podcast. I'll tag you in Andy Frisella's podcast and you guys can learn about 75 Hard. But we're both going through it right now. And he said, one thing that I haven't done in this round of 75 Hard is I have not walked. Not a single workout that I've done has been a walk. I haven't taken a day easy, and I haven't taken a day, where I feel like that I'm not applying max effort with everything that I do. So I refuse to walk. And what's really great about that is he asked me, so you're 8 days in, have you walked? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Like some of my workouts have been brutal. So that second workout, I use it as like a recovery. Now, you need to understand, by me saying I'm using that second workout as like a recovery workout, what I'm actually doing is kind of, for lack of a better term, I'm kind of bitching that second workout, right? I'm doing it. I'm going through the motions. I can say that it's done, but in reality, by walking in that second workout, I know in the back of my mind that I can be better. I could run. I could walk and then stop every 5 minutes and do some push-ups. I could walk and every 5 minutes do some air squat. Like I could make it harder. And the point he was making was, if you would just add that little bit, if you would add that one extra rep, or you would add that one extra exercise, or that one extra step, or that little bit more, then it's going to be really easy for you, that to anybody that decides to go through that 75 Hard program, it's going to be easy for you to say things like, if you're going to do it, what I would do is make sure that both of your workouts are hard. If you're going to do it, I would make sure that instead of reading 10 pages, you read 11. And if you're going to do it, instead of, drinking a gallon of water a day, up that to a little bit more. Like, I think a lot of people, especially on the leadership side of things, they do what's required and nothing more. And what I've found in my experience and working with some of these people that are incredibly, what I would deem as high level people, is they do that rep and then an extra rep. They do that step and then another step. They do that what's required and then a little bit more. And to me, that's really where that authentic leadership comes in. I'll give you another quick story. We've got a guy that we worked with probably about 2.5 years ago. And one of the things he struggled with in his company is he could not get people to listen to, I don't know, assignments or things that people in the organization needed to do. And what I asked him was, I said, how much of what you want these people to do is actually in writing? Like they have a job description, they have a position outline agreement, they've got clarity and they understand where the vision is going. They've got core values, they've got, things like that. And he said, none of it, but it's repeated on a regular basis. And I said, okay, so let me ask you something. How much of what you're doing every single day are you planning or is in writing? And he's like, none of it. And I'm like, okay, so by you not planning and being prepared, and by them not being clear of exactly what they should be doing every single day, you're asking them to do things that you don't even have, which makes that inauthentic leadership. And even deeper than that, that's him not leading himself in a manner in which he wants his team to lead themselves. So those two things don't connect. And that's really the difference between inauthentic and authentic leadership. Authentic leadership is leading by example, and not just by leading by example where you're doing the things that are required. It's leading by example and doing the things that are required plus some, doing the things that are required plus some, setting the example that I was this way 30 days ago, I'm now this way 30 days later, right? And that's what really strong teams and really strong leadership fundamentally and foundationally is built on, because you can't continue to raise up the leaders that are in charge of things inside your organization if you're not constantly challenging yourself. They see you challenging yourself, which essentially is by default permission for you to challenge them. You're leveling up, you're raising up, you're growing, you're expanding, you're becoming something better and different every 30, 60, 90 days. So from that measure, from that place, you can challenge people in your organization to do the same, to follow suit. And that way you're not out of integrity. You're in integrity because you're not just standing around and barking orders about what needs to be done. You're physically doing what needs to be done. You're creating opportunities for other people. You're creating opportunities for yourself, and you're very, very clear on the work that has to be hammered out and completed, and you do the work that has to be hammered out and completed. I'll give you an opposite example, right? We also know a couple people on the operations team of another relatively large company, and they're the pace setter. So they're the pace setter even up over and above what the ownership level is. They're out creating they're clear on what the vision is, and they're clear that performing or exceeding the vision benefits them. So they're out front, like 2 steps out front of the leader. So the leader of the company has said, this is where I want to take the company. The leader is doing some of the work that's required, but this group of people have said, okay, we're going to band together and get way, if he's serious about it, we're going to get way out front of what he's trying to do. We're going to create way out front of, instead of being a couple steps behind and reacting to things that he says he needs done, we're clear about the vision. We're clear about where things need to go. We're going to create a couple steps in front. And that's what I'm talking about. It's authentic leadership is really doing more than the minimum. That's what I look for inside of or who's doing more than the minimum, who's doing more than the required, who's doing more than what's being lined out and planned for, who's going up over and above. Where are the people that are showing up early and going home late? And not that I really even care about the hours. Where are the people that are exceeding the project focus or goal or target long before they're saying things like, we probably need to be paid more, or we probably need to be compensated different, and that's just that's the nature of the beast. We could do a podcast about that too, but I'm really just at the end of the day, and the thing that I'm seeing in the marketplace right now is a lot of people doing the minimum. Some people not even doing the minimum, not even doing the required, but expecting their teams to do more than how they're showing up, expecting the teams to do more than how they're leading themselves. And I think that's a colossal mistake. I had a call with a guy yesterday, and he runs a relatively small company, and it's him and one sales guy and I think one operations person. And he's like, how do I grow this company to the next level? And I started asking him questions like, how often do you work out? How often do you spend time intentionally with your wife and your kids? How often do you spend time intentionally by yourself thinking about what the company is going to look like? How often are you meditating? How often are you practicing spirituality? How often are you learning a new skill to move the company forward? And he's like, I do all that stuff sometimes, but I'm not consistent. And I said, well, you should expect the growth inside your organization then to not be consistent, because it's going to match the level of leadership inside the organization is going to match the level of leadership that starts at the top of the company. And I know some of you guys are going to be like, well, but you said there was a company that the leaders in the organization that were running the operations are almost out leading the owner of the organization. Yeah, but that's the rarity. That's not the norm. And the point that I'm making from that is you can start to be an authentic, very high level leadership from any position inside of an organization. You don't just have to be the leader. You don't just have to be a manager. You can do that at any position. You can look at yourself in the mirror tomorrow when you go home, and you could, or today, and you could say, am I leading myself to the best of my ability? Am I leading my family to the best of my ability? Am I the best version? And we've talked about this in a prior podcast. Am I the best version of myself that I possibly could be? If the answer is no to those things, then you've got a responsibility to uphold, which is, You got to become an authentic leader, because it doesn't matter. And again, we've touched on this a little bit before, but it doesn't matter that you don't consider yourself to be a leader. You don't want to lead other people. If you've got a husband or a wife and you've got kids, you're a leader by default. And we've talked about that, right? So here's some things for you to take inventory of on a regular basis, okay? I want you to look at those of you that are running organizations, that are owners of organizations. I want you to look at every single day, how are you showing up as a leader? And not just in leader inside the company. I'm talking about leadership inside yourself, leadership inside your family, leadership inside of your spirituality and who you are as a person, and how you show up and all that stuff. How are you leading? And I'm talking about self right now. How are you leading yourself? Then when you look at outside, how are you leading other people? Are you leading by example? Are you leading through words? Are you leading by expectations, which we've talked about that in the past and how dangerous that is? Just get an inventory of where you are right now from a leadership perspective. And then you need to ask yourself, am I being authentic as a leader or inauthentic as a leader? What is the difference? How do I know? And I think one of these things that can often be a wake-up call for a lot of people is sit down with your team and ask your team, what do they need? And are you providing what they need? And I think an inventory of that every 90 days or so is vital, crucial, and important. We're building out several departments inside of our organization, and I'm constantly saying things like, what do we need? Do we need to go get more equipment? Do we need to hire somebody who knows more about this than we do? Do we need to bring in other people that are specialists in something that we're not? Like that's always taking an inventory of where we are inside the organization. And I think that's incredibly important as a leader. Okay. So, there's so much to unpack around this topic. My mind is going a million miles an hour, because we could just make a leadership podcast around health and fitness. We could make a leadership podcast around, spirituality and mindset around that particular stuff. And, but in general, I just wanted to go over this with you guys today and really have you start to weigh in and think about, how am I showing up as a leader? How am I showing up as a leader in every area of my life and including my business? Okay. So just like I say toward the end of almost every podcast, I want you to take this podcast. I want you to go and do an inventory check right now. Get super clear about where you are as a leader. Get clear about what has to happen to move forward to get yourself into a more authentic position as a leader. And then get your mind right, get clear about what you have to do, and then let's go to war.
It's time to go to war.
Thank you for listening to the Go to War podcast. For more information about Smash, please visit www.thesmashco.com. This has been the Go to War podcast.